Hello everybody, welcome back to What's Cooking in Bert's Kitchen. Today we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to cook an entire meal, protein, starch, vegetable, real simple, and it's going to be the best you ever had. Because today we're cooking steak. Here I've got New York strip steaks. Bought them on sale, no problem, I'm going to use them today. Saved over $4 on over a pound of steak. Now, I happen to like New York strip. Some people like ribeye because it contains the New York strip, which is the rib meat, as well as the tenderloin, which you know as filet mignon. I like the New York strip. It tends to be a little more marbled, have a little bit more fat than a ribeye, and just that's where all the flavor is contained in meat. You need a little bit of fat in there. You don't want it to be all fat. We're not talking about hamburger here. And let me show you exactly what I'm talking about here. You see in this piece of meat, there's a fat cap around the outside, but you'll see in here that it's marbled with white, just little specks of white. That fat, that contains the best flavor in the world. Now, along with our steaks, we're going to cook some risotto. Sounds exotic. They talk about using arborio rice, which is a short grain rice. Yes, you can't use long grain rice for this. Don't use long grain rice for this. It's not going to work. But that short grain rice, since Food Network has made this all so popular, the risotto, it's really expensive. What I do is I buy a medium grain rice. Here, I have a 20-pound bag of medium grain rice. I got it for $7 at the store. So, yeah, it's better than $7 a pound for that arborio rice. This will work. You need a lot of starch in your rice, so the shorter the grain, the better. However, this medium grain rice will work perfectly. It also works well for just your regular rice for dinner. So, you don't have to buy long grain rice either. Medium grain, just the way to go. So let's get started on all of this. First thing we're going to need is a grill pan. Now, if you're using the outside grill, get it warmed up first, okay? First thing I'm going to do, set that to about, I've got electric here, so I don't have, but medium to medium high, about 6.5 is where I'm going. That's because I know my stove. We want to get that warming up, as well as a good-sized pot for our rice. We want to start warming that up and put a little oil in it. So again, we're going to do the same thing, 6.5. I've got a little olive oil in here, squirt it to coat the bottom. Okay, so we've got our two pans here heating up. First thing we're going to need is half an onion. So I'm going to cut this onion in half, then I'm going to dice it into small pieces. So we cut the ends off, cut this in half. Half of it I'm going to set aside. I'll use it at a later date for something else. Let's peel off that outer skin. There it goes. And then we're going to dice this, cut it lengthwise. And then, as I'm always teaching you, curl your fingers under. We'll just dice it, just like that. Now we'll take that and we'll get it into our heated oil. We want to sweat that out. We don't want to brown it, but we want to sweat it out. Stir it around quite a bit till it gives up all its natural juices and flavors and gets real soft and translucent. Now, in the back here, you notice I have another pot. What is in there? I have 5 cups of chicken stock. Now, you can buy chicken stock at the store, make it yourself, use bouillon cubes or the powdered mix with hot water. But I've got the temperature on low just to keep it warm. It's because you're going to need warm liquid to put in this. Now all those little dices of onion are starting to sweat down. I also want to put some oil on my grill pan now that it's starting to warm up a little. Now you see I'm using cast iron. That's going to take a while to heat up, but it's starting to get a little warm now. I want to put some oil on there. It'll spread around nice and even for when we cook our steaks. Now another thing we want is a clove of garlic. We're going to chop up 1 clove of garlic. This is a full bulb. I'm just going to break a clove out of here. We'll chop it up as fine as we can get it, toss it in there. But you want to let the onions go because garlic will burn quick. So you want to let the onions get almost to where you want them and then throw the garlic in. Just, so it's in there for about a minute. Okay, so our onions are pretty translucent. Let's get that garlic in there. And here you can see what our onions look like. They're not really browned. Got a little bit of garlic in there. Let's keep this going. Now the next thing we're going to add here is 1 cup of our medium grain rice. If you happen to be rich and you can afford arborio rice, go for it. I'm not. I like to save money. Now we want to just throw this right in there with no liquid and start toasting it, which is going to take a couple of minutes. Stir it around, get it mixed in there good with your onions. It'll start to get clear, kind of like the onions. And that's when you know we're ready to start adding liquid. So I'm going to let it toast for a minute here. Meanwhile, we're going to take care of our steaks. Real simple. I put a little steak seasoning on them. A little olive oil, just a drizzle. Rub it in there. Now here's the steak seasoning I have. I've tried a lot of them. This one is brilliant. It's Weber. It's made by the Grill People. It's called Gourmet Burger. It's brilliant. But if you want to make your own, some kosher salt, some pepper, some chopped garlic, dried chopped garlic that you would buy in the spice section, maybe a little paprika. But we just sprinkle that on there good and then pat it in. Don't ever rub it because you're just going to wind up rubbing most of it off. Pat it right in. When we put it on the grill, we'll flip it over and do the same thing to it. And then make sure you wash your hands. Stir your rice around a little bit so it doesn't burn on one side and not the other. Okay, so the next thing we want to do, white wine. Add some white wine, your favorite white wine. about half a cup, and let that cook down. Okay, so all that water has been absorbed. Next thing we want to do, let's get our steaks on the grill. Put them on at an angle like such. And I'll show you why in a few minutes. But we're going to set a timer for 5 minutes now. Now the reason I'm setting that timer for 5 minutes is because 5 minutes for this size steak, I know, will give me a perfect medium rare. I never cook a steak past medium rare. That's sacrilege. But if you want to go to medium, go to maybe 6 minutes aside. Beyond that, yeah. Okay, so now, all that wine has been absorbed. I want to get a ladle and start ladling in some of our chicken stock. Just enough to get it moist. Maybe that's about a cup. And we're going to stir this constantly. Until all of that liquid is absorbed into the rice. And then we're going to add more liquid. Then we're going to keep this up until our rice is cooked. Then we're going to throw in some butter, some Parmesan, boom, you've got risotto. Takes about 15 minutes total from start to finish. So you can see how much liquid we put in there. It's starting to simmer. And we're going to continue to stir this until all that liquid's absorbed, and I'll show you that again. Now our steaks have been on for about 2 minutes. What I want to do is I want to turn them 90 degrees. What that's going to do is, with those raised edges, give it those grill marks, and I'll show you that when we turn them over. And we've oiled and seasoned this second side of the meat as well. Now what's happening here while we're stirring all of this, and I apologize for the background noise, you hear the fan on, that's just to keep any smoke from the steaks, any off the pan, from clouding up our video. But as you're stirring this, the starches from the rice are coming out and thickening everything up. While the rice is absorbing the stock, it's also releasing starch and thickening this all up. We're basically making a creamy rice. That's what a risotto is. Now, as you can see, most of the liquid is gone. We're going to add a little bit more and just keep continuing to do this until it's ready to go. And there's my timer, which means it's time to flip my steaks. So as you can see, they've got those brilliant crisscross marks on them. And we turn it over, set it for another 5 minutes, and then we're going to let it rest for a couple of minutes while we finish up our risotto, and it'll be perfect. Okay, time to add a little more liquid to our risotto. Keep on stirring. Time to turn our steaks again 90 degrees. Get our grill marks. This works perfectly well on your grill outside. Halfway through each side, just turn them 90 degrees and you'll get those beautiful grill marks. In the meanwhile, on the back burner over here, I've also got some string beans, frozen string beans boiling. They happen to be my wife's favorite, so she hasn't had the greatest day today. So I'm making her a nice dinner. All right, so that buzzer means our steaks are done. We're going to take them off, set them on a plate, and let them rest. The reason you want to do this is so that the juices have time to flow. When they're cooking on the grill, they've all flowed to the outside, the edges of the meat. Now, if you cut it now, all that juice is just going to run out. By letting it rest for a minute or two, what's going to happen is the juices are all going to flow back into the meat, and the rest of it is going to remain nice and juicy and moist, just the way you want. Meanwhile, we're going to finish cooking up our risotto here. And there goes the last of our stock. We're just going to stir this in. Take a minute or two for it to cook down. Now the point is you don't want to put in too much stock at once, because what will happen is it'll cause the temperature of this to drop and it won't simmer at the proper temperature. You know, no more than 1/2 to 1 cup at a shot. And make sure it's completely absorbed before you put in your next portion of stock. Okay, now here's the secret to a good risotto. At the end here, now not all the liquid is gone, but it's pretty creamy. Okay? What we want to do, we're going to add some butter. Now, first, another thing you might want to try at the end here with the risotto, taste it. Make sure your rice is cooked. Oh, yeah. Well cooked. Good chicken flavor. So now what we're going to do, we're going to add a couple tablespoons of butter. Add some Parmesan cheese. Yeah, I know. You can grate your own if you got the money. This is about 3 or 4 tablespoons worth of this stuff. That's going to thicken up the little bit of liquid that's left and make this good and creamy. Cook it right down. Make sure all that butter's melted. You get plenty of Parmesan in there. Get it all distributed. You'll taste that wine, you'll taste the chicken stock, you'll taste the Parmesan, the rice. It's going to be brilliant. So here we have a steak, nice and well rested. A nice portion of creamy risotto. Oh, I'm hungry today. Let's go for a little more. And back here, some green beans. I just coated them with a little butter, salt, and pepper. And there, with little fuss, in under half an hour, you've got yourself dinner. And a brilliant dinner at that. You serve this up and your husband will do the laundry for the next 3 weeks. I guarantee it. Well, folks, thank you for joining us today. I hope we entertained you and I hope we taught you something. Please come back next time to find out what's cooking in Bert's kitchen.